call the Town Plan and Zoning Commission March 28th meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the Secretary read the roll?
Chairman Aida.
Here.
Commissioner Canillo.
Here.
Commissioner Claffey.
Here.
Commissioner Fox.
Me?
Yep.
I didn't hear the phone. You gotta fix my hearing aids, sorry.
Commissioner
Here.
Payne.
Here.
Commissioner Sobieski.
Here.
Commissioner Woods.
Didn't sound like
Commissioner Vitalica. Commissioner Braverman.
Here.
Commissioner DeAngrave.
Looks like Commissioner Woods is not here. We'll have Commissioner Braverman sit in his spot tonight. Approval of the agenda, Mr. Planner.
No changes.
Public participation at this time for items that are not on the agenda. Anyone wish to speak?
Pardon my voice, but Carol Annis, 30 Harding Avenue, and I'm also the majority leader on the council. I just want to ask everybody if you can please bring the mic all the way up to your mouth and talk in. If you want to sit back, hold it. We can't hear you back there, and from the last meeting, it was very, very difficult to listen watching it. So I would just ask if everybody could do that. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll have remarks by commissioners. Any remarks at this time? Commissioner Fox.
Let me make sure I get the... I must say I agree with Councilor Annis, and I was going to bring that up anyway, but I don't know what changes you made here, Craig, but when I was reading through it, there were some inaudibles and some typos, and I think part of that is because we're not talking into the mics, and I'm just about as guilty as anyone else. And really, since we're required to have a verbatim minutes, I think it's, we should really start speaking up, speaking into the mic, give Noreen an easier time in doing her minutes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else, other commissioner members? Any remarks? Seeing none. Next item on the agenda is public hearings. We'll have the secretary read the procedures which we follow for public hearings.
The order of proceedings at a public hearing shall be as follows. A, convening by chairman. B, reading of the notice by the commission secretary or a commissioner designated by the chairman to act in his stead. C, identification and location of the property involved by the town planner. D, a statement of the issue to be considered. D, a statement to be issued.
Get closer. Get closer to the mic. There you go.
Okay. A statement of the issue to be considered by the chairman or the town planner. E, presentation by the applicant limited to 20 minutes unless a specific extension is granted by the chair. F, persons wishing to speak in favor of the application limited to 2 minutes per person. G, persons wishing to speak in opposition to the application limited to 3 minutes per person. H, rebuttal by the applicant limited to 5 minutes total. I, rebuttal by the opposition limited to 5 minutes total. During a public hearing, it shall be within the discretion of the chairman whether the time limitation should be varied slightly, provided the commission consents to any such variance. In no case shall the extension be for more than 20% of the allotment indicated above, or 1 minute, whichever is greater.
Okay, please read petition 05-18. Read it into the minutes.
Petition 05-18, special permit, section 3.15.3, outside restaurant seating.
Commissioner Camillo, it's not picking up. The meter's not moving. You need to, like, a couple of inches.
Put it right up to your mouth like that.
All right, let's try this again. Petition 5-18, special permit, section 3.15.3, outside restaurant seating at 3260 Berlin Turnpike, Plaza Azteca. John Kennelly, applicant. Bobbin Newbritt, Applicant Craven Newington, LLC. Owner Manuel Rubio, 3260 Berlin Turnpike, Newington, Connecticut. Contact.
Is the applicant here or his representative? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and make your presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, okay, maybe I'm doing it too loud now. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Kennelly from the firm of Kennelly & Associates, 196 Trumbull Street, Hartford, Connecticut. I'm also General National Counsel for Plaza Azteca.
Go ahead.
If I may proceed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask as a housekeeping matter that a diagram that I've prepared in support of the application be placed into the record. And Mr. Chairman, I have a larger visual of this diagram, which I'd like to put on display for the Commission's edification during the application.
I can run back to the office and get the tripod?
Yeah, I think it'll just clip onto the whiteboard there.
Can't we flip it to-
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead. I think it's the same as what you're handing out. Is it?
It is, Mr. Chairman.
Why don't you put it up so that the public can see it? There's nothing to hang it from. Well, go ahead. Great. Help them out. You got one for the planner. Take this one. Take this one. I'm open. There you go. Thank you, Fred.
Mr. Chairman, I am here to make application pursuant to local regulations for additional outdoor seating at Plaza Azteca on the Berlin Turnpike. This is an annual event which has occurred here in town with some success and with good attendance. On the diagram that I provided personally and is showing, we provide the outline of the fencing that will be installed. That will be metal fencing. We also provide you with locations of where the stationary security will be. There will be in total during the event, which is scheduled from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., 24 different security officers, both in 3 different zones, one being inside the actual restaurant, the second being outside the restaurant but inside the fenced area, and the third in different locations outside the fenced area, providing assistance to things like parking regulation with the Lowe's parking lot, which is located abutting and kind of flows into the parking lot of Plaza Azteca. Another parking situation that exists is that the Applebee's, I believe it is, which is located abutting, has closed, and we have Cleban, which is the pronunciation of the landlord's permission to use their parking because there is no establishment at that location, so any overflow parking can be there also. Security will include, upon entrance to the, as you can see there at the topmost, and I think that was the northernmost section of the fenced area where you see the entrance to the fenced-in area. The entrance will have security guards who check IDs and also apply and secure unique wristbands to the individuals to just even be loitering in the fenced-in area. Any individual that then thereafter attempts to order alcohol will also be carded for a visual ID pursuant to state statute. So having a wristband isn't sufficient to actually purchase any alcohol. We're putting in double controls to try to avoid anybody trying to get around anything or trying to switch wristbands, though they should be broken and inoperable and unable to be used if anyone did try to take them off of an adult's wrist and put them on somebody who maybe isn't a legal drinker. But even if they did do that, no one will be served alcohol until a tip certified, either bartender or server, and then has proof of ID at that purchase point also. As I said, there will be 24 different security guards. Their main job is crowd control and crowd management, but they're also to maintain a secure and safe parking area. This, as I said, has had some success in the past. We have a formal agreement with the Lowe's main manager or senior most manager to use his parking area, and therefore that shouldn't be a problem. I've already told you about Applebee's. This is as I said, this is very similar to the layout, if not exactly the layout that was approved last year, the year before that. We think that we have come up with a good plan, a safe plan, one that ensures adherence to both local and state law. And with that being said, I will tell you we are very open to any sort of either suggestion or recommendation or amendment that this commission, through its membership or other officials of the town, think would be necessary or beneficial to throw a more successful event, and that we are certainly open to amendment.
Is that right?
That's all I have for this moment, but I'm certainly open to any questions regarding any of the more granular details of the application.
Okay, I'll open it up to the staff and then to the commissioners.
Well, I just want to put on the record what the commissioners received in the agenda packet, and that is emails from the fire chief and the chief of the police expressing their respective feelings that they will not be approving the event this year.
You want to go into more detail?
Yes. Yeah. Let me. Yes, the fire marshal, well, actually, I'll read his report. After the event last year, the Planning and Zoning Commission asked me to contact the fire chief and the police chief to ask them for what I'm calling an after-action report. And the email that we got from Chief Clark is just a couple sentences. This is dated June 22nd, 2017. Craig, we made one arrest of a female patron for criminal trespass and interfering with a police officer. There was one other minor disturbance that was handled on scene by officers working the detail. The PD did receive a noise complaint about loud music coming from Plaza Azteca from an area resident. And then I asked the chief to give us his opinion of the event for this year, and I got the following email from Chief Clark on March 8th of this year. Good morning, Craig. I see Plaza Azteca is on the agenda. I'm assuming it's for their annual Cinco de Mayo event. When considering the special permit, the police department will no longer be providing police services to any of their events. They still owe the department $8,600 from last year when we provided them with police services. If you have any questions, please let me know. And last year, the fire marshal's response to my request for a comment said that this year the cold, wet weather played a significant role in keeping the crowd to a minimum. However, for the third year in a row, I was called to the restaurant by police officers working the event to review overcrowding conditions. As a result of management's inability to safely control larger crowds, revised or special increased occupancy notices will no longer be authorized by this office. And that's from the fire marshal dated June 20 of 2017. And when I asked the fire marshal for an update this year on March 21st, he replied, Craig, thanks for the heads up. My position hasn't changed.
Any other staff comments?
No.
Open up to commissioners. Any comments from the commissioners on this event? Commissioner Sobieski.
Yes, last year they had a gentleman who ran security, and he said we didn't have a problem, and apparently there was problems there. We've had problems every year Cinco de Mayo has been going on there. But my major concern here is I don't see you addressing people crossing the Berlin Turnpike, which is why they had police there last year. That's number one. Number two, we now have a new business in there, which is Chick-fil-A, that should be open by then. Am I correct?
No, I don't believe the building is even down.
Okay. Well, that was my other question there. And was the parking lots cleaned? I know last year they used the DOT parking lot, and I understand it was a mess.
Mr. Chairman, if I may respond to staff and then the commissioner, or the commissioner and the staff, whichever.
Let the commissioners
I'm sorry.
continue, and then we'll do it all at once. Commissioner Claffey.
My question is off-street parking, and you say there were agreements between current, I don't say leasees, because I don't know if the other businesses own those out parcels, or they lease them from the developer. So, there's been issues in the past with the overflow of parking, and it's all usually been, just the Lowe's management sending a letter to us, but there's, 4 or 5 other businesses in that area, 1, 2, 3, 4 that I can see from a Google map, one that's vacant, so I just want to make sure that all those parties are aware and are okay with giving up their parking if need be. That's my question.
Stan, you had another question?
Yeah, one other quick one. What do you plan on doing with the money that's owed to the police department?
It's been paid, sir.
Greg, is that correct?
Yes, the police chief told me this morning that it had been paid.
Because I'm thinking that they're going to have some extra cruisers up there to handle.
Well, I asked the chief, though, does that mean now that he will be assigning police coverage for this event, and he said no.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Fox.
Yeah, through the chair, Mr. Kennelly, so since you've paid your debt to the police department, will you be using NPD for security this year? Or is this using a private security?
He just, the planner just informed you that the chief of police will not provide security for them.
Well, I thought there might have been a change when then. I apologize. No, that's all I have now.
Any other commissioner remarks? Hi, yes.
I don't want to nitpick, but the restaurant that is, I thought my voice is deep enough. I don't want to nitpick, but the restaurant that they were talking about that was closed down is Ruby Tuesdays.
Mr. Chairman, he's correct. I stand corrected.
I just wanted to be able to address that.
Okay.
And it says that it will be a metal fence. On the diagram, it says plastic.
I apologize. It is a metal fence. The actual fencing has been, in fact, purchased by the larger corporation. We hope to use it, obviously, until the final decision of this commission. We won't be deploying it. It was one of the attempts, and I'll try to answer a lot of this holistically. Mr. Chairman, should I start my response?
Yes, go ahead.
Unless there's, I don't want to step on
Any other commissioner remarks at this time? Commissioner Fox.
Yes, I do have a couple. One thing. How are you going to keep drunk adults away from the kids' area bouncing house?
Mr. Chairman, should I start my reply to the different comments, staff, and
Other
commissioner?
comments, Mr. Fox? No. Yeah, why don't you start?
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. I don't know how much time I've used up so far of my 20
Go
minutes.
ahead, looking to let you
To begin, there was the comment by Chief Clark, who I've spoken to. I will tell you my involvement both in this particular application and being the National New General Counsel was because mistakes were made in the past. I don't deny that. The failure of my client to pay in a timely fashion the Newington police is unacceptable. It wasn't known to the gentlemen who I work for now, who are also new in their positions. I will tell you, as soon as I found out about it, I called Chief Clark. I spoke to him about it, and I beseeched him to, I said, I'll have a check driven over now will you come provide security? And he told me, John, it's great that you're going to pay, but that does not in any way change my position. And it's not you, and it's not this application. He says, this is the standing policy of the Newington Police Department. You fail to pay in a timely fashion, no matter what you apply for in the future, you're not going to get. And John, I can't make an exception for you, because then I will be making exceptions for others, and that's just where I stand. I understood that, and I said, well, we're still going to run a check over there and pay what we owe, which we did do, and that bill has been paid, and it was addressed as soon as I found out about this, which was even after the application process had started, and I got asked to take it over. I will say, it was a good event. I mean, sure, there was some rain, but there was attendance. I mean, I seem to be getting, my client getting damned on both sides. On one side, it rained, so it wasn't very well attended, but it was so successful it got a little too packed. And for the entire event, there was, if I believe I'm correct, remembering the record properly, one arrest for trespass. I'm not sure if she was told to get off of our land because of some reason, and then she tried to return. I don't know if she was at Lowe's and wasn't supposed to be over there. But it was only one arrest for the entire day. That's not, I think, indicative of a very troubled event or a very bad event or one that reflects so poorly. That certainly, to my recollection, I represented for the last 20 years major restaurant chains up and down the East Coast. A trespass claim, one misdemeanor, does not make a bad event. It's just not indicative of something that's a real public hazard. It just isn't. There was the fire marshal stating that there were some violations of capacity. One of the ways we intend to ensure that this is done, or that this issue does not occur again, is that there will be counters with all security personnel at any door, maintaining a single count of everybody on the premises. We also intend that when this event comes to a close, starting at about 9:15, the event itself closes at 10 o'clock at night pursuant to the application. At 9:15, start getting people out of there. People on the exterior will not be allowed to go into the interior of the building. If you are still around at 9:15 and you are and by this I define as outside the building, inside the fencing area, you will be moved towards that exit area, and you'll leave. There won't be a funneling in of patrons from the outside to the inside between 9:15 and 10 o'clock, which is the breakdown time of the event, the special permit, which is the application before you. The application is until 10 o'clock, but the plan is to start breaking it down at 9:15. Has there been complaints by the fire marshal that we haven't maintained capacity appropriately? I understand that. And I do believe that there are safeguards or codicils or requirements that could be applied to this or made runners on this application and any permit that is issued about that. Either we paying for someone from the fire marshal's office to be there, we paying for something along those lines to ensure another level of responsibility or accountability when it comes to people being inside the building. The marshal also stated that he was unwilling to do the amended one-day occupancy, and I think you're all familiar with that. When you pull out all the tables and you pull out a lot of the stuff, all of a sudden you go from a capacity of 164 to 210 or something. I understand if that's his position. I find it unfortunate, but I would say that we would ask to go forward with this application. Let's recall that this application is concerning outdoor seating. It is, I believe, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, but to restate his email, he wasn't willing to do a revised interior capacity for this because he felt we had let too many people into the building in the past. I don't like it. My clients won't be happy with it, but we would be willing to obviously accept it and look to move forward with this application because, in fact, the application is concerning exterior seating, not interior seating. There had been a question earlier about people crossing the turnpike and the dangers of that because there is no crosswalk. Immediately at the intersection where there's a traffic control device closest to this restaurant, which is actually when all those different parking lots feed out into the parking lot, or into the turnpike. And there is no designated crosswalk there with crossing lighting or crossing controls. We understand that, and just as last year, there will be security posted out there. We are, from our side of the street, we will be telling people and directing people to go down, I believe it's south to the next closest traffic control device has a crosswalk. I think I'm right about that, I may not be. Or maybe the one most, either most northerly or more southerly of it. And people will be out there to direct individuals to head towards the proper cross area, not to cross in it where it isn't legal, in fact. You can see where we've got that crosswalk person on the display that is up on the screen right now. That's where we would be posting security guards to try to control that event. Now, people coming from the other side, if they decided to go park somewhere on the other side of the Berlin Turnpike and wander their way across and over to us, we have little control over that, but we can try to, the security guards will be instructed to assist those people to ensure that the drivers and the vehicles were aware that people were attempting to cross at an illegal cross and to ensure that they got across safely. We wouldn't encourage it, but if it's occurring in front of us, our security guards will try to make it as safe as possible. We cannot control people's complete conduct when they're coming from somewhere, not far away, but across the Berlin Turnpike. Don't tell us what they're doing. We won't encourage it. We'll encourage from our side of the street proper application or following of the traffic control and the crosswalk law, but we will do what we can to make sure it's safe as possible. We can't control the actions of everyone at all times. There had been a question regarding parking and the parking that occurs with Lowe's. We have an agreement with Richard Schoetletter, S-C-H-O-E-T-T-L-E-R. He is the senior most manager at that location. It is his store and he's responsible for it. And he has designated the parking closest to the Plaza Azteca for our use during the hours of this application. We will also be positioning security guards out there to ensure, and also the Lowe's parking lot, so that if people attempt to park in the Lowe's where we've designated or where Lowe's is designated is going to be their customer parking for those hours. If someone tries to park there and walk over to the restaurant, they'll be told to get back in their car and move to the proper area. At the same time, we will try to direct people who are pulling into that and taking that right-hand turn, kind of following the pathway, that they should be parking in the Lowe's area that we have been allowed to use for between 10 a.m. and 11 p.m. There will be people stationed that entire, from probably around 9:30 in the morning for the entirety of this permit, making sure that, A, we are good neighbors to Lowe's, and that we honor our agreement with them, and that we don't cause them a loss of sales from a loss of parking, and at the same time keeping people who are interested in attending our event in the area of our restaurant and keeping them concentrated there. There was a final question regarding how are we going to keep drunken adults away from, or anybody who's affected in any way, away from the child bouncing area. I believe if you look at the paper diagram that I have up there, you can, and that's the same thing as I gave. No, I apologize. The paper, the full diagram doesn't has what the handouts don't have, which is where you see each of those red designations. In the public can't see it because I can barely see it. Those are permanent stationary guards. Those are positions where guards are stationed permanently. The other guards are in a walking around kind of pattern, watching the crowd. But those red spots are all permanent positions of security, and you'll see that there's one right near the bouncy house. So there will be a security guard designated for that position during the entirety of the permit application.
Thank you.
I believe I've answered most, if not all.
Mr. Sobieski.
My concern still is the Target parking lot across the street. Last year, I believe they stationed somebody there to discourage people from parking. That's one concern that I did not hear you address. Second concern is when you have a full-time police officer out there, he's able to use a stop control board, box actually allow people to cross the highway if they were crossing. Your private guards will not have that ability to do that. You've got 4 lanes in one direction and 4 lanes in another direction with a 10-foot island in there. So if somebody gets caught in the middle there trying to cross, it's going to be very dangerous for them. So I would definitely suggest you discourage any type of crossing on that highway, in my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yeah, go ahead.
We would be more than willing to, I did not, by the way, you'll notice I didn't talk about Target parking. We're not encouraging, we're not going to go rent some of their parking. I'm sure they probably...
No, I don't want you to rent.
I absolutely, and I want to, through you, Mr. Chairman, what I'm telling you is that is nowhere a part of our parking plan on purpose. We do not want, we would be more than willing to agree to or make a condition of the issuance of this permit that we pay for and have posted, 35 different signs that say no parking for event at Plaza Azteca, and station 2 guards out there for the entirety of the permit time period to stop people who get out of their car and seem to boogie away, the opposite direction of Target and towards us, to tell them they had to get back in their car, we're going to have the car towed. I'd be happy to agree to signage with language about immediate towing for people who, park there, and we'll pay for the towing.
And one other quick question, if I may, please. Is this fence within your property? It's not on the DOT right away?
It is not on the right-of-way DOT. It is on the property of Cleban Newington LLC. It's our landlord, who's aware of this event, obviously.
I'll make sure, because one year it was pushed way out to the highway.
I also would have no objection to a designated foot limit from the building line of our structure. What I'm here to do is work with you so that your concerns are addressed and that a safe and profitable but successful event that's in everybody wins occurs. And that's why I said at the beginning of my presentation that we are certainly open to any sort of conditions being placed on this application.
Mr. Claffey.
Question on the parking. You brought up the agreement with Lowe's and the manager there. Well, again, what about the other businesses?
The other business was the Ruby Tuesdays. I think if you're looking at the top of it, that's a closed business.
That whole parking parcel area from from the corner of Arby's south, all those parking lots are interconnected. Arby's may be separate, but from the property line of Arby's south, is there not an agreement, and this was brought up before, that they all share parking that's calculated in their occupancy? So you brought up that you have an agreement with Lowe's, but what about the other business, IHOP, the future Chick-fil-A site, Outback? So
We reached an agreement only with Lowe's at this point. I'd be more than willing to memorialize some sort of agreements and either have it be that we would, say, pay for an additional security guard to sit at IHOP and tell people, get back in your car, or reach an agreement with IHOP. I think it's much more likely that we reach an agreement with IHOP that that says we can use so many of their parking spots for between the hours of 10 and 11. I'm not sure what the hours of operation of IHOP are. So they may close at 7 or something, and so there may not be a total overlap of hours. But I would be more than willing to revisit and represent at a later date if we wanted to table this particular application so that I can answer and address all the concerns of the commission.
Mr. Claffey.
also, you brought up the LLC that owns...
Cleveland.
Okay, do they own just that area, or do they own the whole complex?
They're the developer of the whole area. And by whole area, you and I aren't looking at a map right now together.
No, but I know the parcel, and what I'm saying is,
That
when you say
development
whole
parcel.
area, that includes the Arby's, that includes the IHOP,
I don't know about the Arby's. I do know the Lowe's. I do know the IHOP.
and then the old...
The Arby's may or may not. I just don't know.
The
The old Ruby
Outback,
Tuesdays.
the Ruby Tuesday / Chick-fil-A, as we'll call it. So that's all under their development.
Under Cleveland Newington LLC.
Okay. So maybe something from them stating that or through you, because they're all one conglomerate in there. That's my...
Yeah,
you
but
keep bringing up Lowe's, and unfortunately, when this first happened a few years ago, I've seen how many people go there, and then last year, yes, the weather deterred some. So, that's the biggest issue, is you get
I think I have to,
2,000 cars that go there.
I think I have to go through the leaseholders, the tenants themselves, because I think they're the ones that have the parking rights. Cleveland can't give me their parking rights that they already pay the rent for. So I would have to speak to, I'd have to have agreements like we have with Mr. Schottler as the senior most manager of the Lowe's. Obviously, we would get one from Cleveland as it applies to the old Ruby Tuesdays / to be Chick-fil-A, because without a tenant, Cleveland then has the rights to that parking.
Any other commissioner remarks?
Thank you.
Any other commissioner remarks at this time? Seeing none. Okay, it's a public hearing. We'll open it up to the public for public input.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and commissioners, thank you for your time.
Does anyone here wish to speak in favor of this application? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, anyone in opposition to this application? Okay. Commissioners, how do you want to proceed? Commissioner Fox?
Well, sure, no reason not to close the hearing, but I guess maybe the big question is whether we move it to old business for tonight or for the next meeting.
Well, the event is until May 5th, so we have two meetings
Okay.
to
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I may?
Go ahead.
To address Commissioner Fox. As I said, and I hate to be repetitive, but, I heard some concerns here tonight. I addressed them as much as I can in real time on hearing those concerns. However, if these concerns are to a level where a commissioner doesn't feel they can support my application because something wasn't addressed concretely enough by me, I'd be certainly more than willing to return on the 11th and to speak to either the commissioners themselves, the chairman, or the town, and figure out ways that we can very happily accept as a friendly amendment to our application any other conditions that would allow this commission to be comfortable in allowing us to have this outside seating.
Any other commissioner comments at this time? Mr. Fox?
Yeah, I don't know, Mr. Chairman. I'm not too sure if there's anything else that, that can be brought up if we leave the
What's
hearing
most
open.
troubling for us
Yeah, I mean, if
is the reports from the chief of police and the fire commission, the fire marshal. Without their blessing on the event, it makes it very hard for this commission to approve this.
yeah, maybe, leaving it open until the next meeting, which is April 11th, would give us a chance to review it a little more and either find some more questions or feel more satisfied.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I did speak to as you know, and I spoke to the chief of police, Chief of Police Clark, and I would invite any commissioner to confirm that though he says he will not be giving us any support through allowing us to rent or, hire for the day the police members, it isn't because of the event. I do need the commissioners to understand that it is his objection wasn't that he said the event was so bad or was so dangerous or was, wasn't run well or the security. He in fact said to me, and you can please confirm this, that the private security that we hired worked out very well, and he was so totally satisfied with them. Because I said, if you didn't like them, I'll hire somebody else. And he said, no, there's no problem with them. It's you didn't pay me, John. And he said, if you don't pay me, you don't get me next year, period. And it isn't just my client, but it's anyone in this position. So I do think that's an important distinction, is that I lack Chief Clark's full-throated support as a matter of policy, not as a matter of particular. And if this was to be tabled till the 11th, I would have an opportunity to discuss in detail the fire marshal's concerns and maybe get them addressed.
Up to the commissioner. Okay, so,
I'd like to leave this open till the 11th. I'd also like to have you follow up on Commissioner Claffey's request to get some type of agreement with Outback Lowe's or Outback and IHOP for the parking.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, absolutely.
yeah, okay. We're going to leave this open till the next meeting, public hearing.
I apologize to keep getting up and getting down, I really do. But the CFO for Plaza Azteca for the United States of America is here today. He arrived late, but he just told me that we do have an agreement with IOP.
Okay. We'll leave it open till the 11th. The hearing will be open and we'll reconvene on the 11th. And at that time, we could either close it and act on it or close it and move it to the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can the Secretary read petition 06-18?
Petition 06-18, special permit, section 3.15.6, place of physical activity at 2631 Berlin Turnpike. Joanna Serrata and Alexis Pena, applicant. 2631 Berlin Turnpike Associates LLC, owner Joanna Serrata, 304 Orchard Ave, Newington, Connecticut, contact.
Is the applicant here, representative? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Alexis Pena, along with my wife, Joanna Serrata. In intention to have the location of 2631 Berlin Turnpike, my address, it's our address, 304 Orchard Avenue.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. We are intent to try to have a indoor family entertainment center called Gigi's Bounce Fun. It is a all-around entertainment complex for both children of ages 2 to 15 and, of course, adults as well, providing superior quality entertainment options and safe, fun, and exciting atmosphere for the whole family with excellent food and popular beverages. As you can see, we're passing around a little information about the location that we are trying to pursue. It would be a handicap-friendly, of course, location and entertainment complex, as well as having staff trained and certified through support and certification of IAPA, which is the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions, meaning that all of our staff will be trained and know how to accommodate all circumstances and daily handling of our location center, including, of course, video cameras in and around our premises, with a certain amount of emergency exits for all safety for everyone within the location. As you can see, it's a complex that we can have indoor apparatuses as well as inflatables and other fun activities for all family members. We would be having as well a location to sign in, to check in, to make sure that our children and family members are all accounted for, and also a safe, providing a safe environment for everyone, as well as having an admission, having staff all over our location with apparatuses, and SOCs being required to be walking around the whole location, as well as having to participate in birthday parties, having separate rooms for a certain amount of parties that we can accommodate, as well as the jump arenas. We will have our trained staff circulating around the premises with, oh, I'm so sorry. Just having staff watching our children play and family members, making sure everyone's secured, as well as other options that we can have a la carte. As far as food is a concern, it would most likely be non-perishable and microwavable, so we would not be listed as a restaurant. It would just be providing basic foods like cakes, cupcakes, and then having outside catering for the birthday parties. We would have the option of having arcade rooms as well, arcade section, and ticket dispensing for collection, redemption for toys and different prizes that we can have available for our kids and families. As far as the location goes, it would be accessible for large scale of entrances as far as schools, camps. There is certain ways of traveling in through the parking lot for buses and larger vehicles, as well as knowing that there is parking in the back of the location as well. But most important, the emergency exits for everyone in certain aspects. And of course, having a kid-friendly facility that offers different. Yeah. Oh. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just what would be different within the entertainment complex is having the ability to have interchangeable apparatuses that would be safe for all children, providing throughout this different seasons, as well as having the ability to have outside rentals of these apparatuses that can be, having constant income into our establishment. Also to bring about our employees and staff, which would, I believe, help to help out with the community as well as trying to hire high school seniors throughout the summer, giving opportunities to everyone within the community, going to the community colleges in and around the neighborhood or area, that we can give the ability to have great staff members and employees within our establishment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, for your time.
Mr. Planner? Comments, sir?
No, this seems to be a pretty straightforward application. We've approved a number of other similar uses in Newington over the years. I think it's a use that Newington is familiar with and is appropriate along the Berlin Turnpike, so I don't have any objections or concerns with it.
And you took the parking requirements
Right, I used,
for this parcel because it's attached to another parcel.
well, it's a large, well, it is its own, it's a freestanding parcel. And they're taking up the entire building. There are no other tenants in the building. And with the amount of space that they're using, the entire building, at the rate of one parking space per 300 square feet, which is an appropriate amount of parking for this type of use, there is sufficient parking on site for this activity.
What's the square footage of the building?
Yeah, I believe it's 8,000. I'm sorry, 21,280. I was thinking of a different project. 21,280 square feet. Right, Right, so they need 71 spaces, and there are 79 on site.
Are you counting up spaces behind the building?
Yes.
Correct.
How many spaces?
I count 83.
You may be more generous than I am.
I
There's some spot, yes, if you,
have enough parking.
yes, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Any commissioner remarks at this time?
I just had a question for the planner. Would that be in the Churchill, like, drive? There's no, that's that back entrance to that condo? Or
Well, yes.
There's some stipulations there that they need, I don't know who owns that.
My understanding is that Shelbourne owns it. It is part of this property, and that the condominium they have an easement. They have a right to pass over it, but it's fee simple for the of the building.
Mr. Sobieski.
Yes, thank you. Maybe I missed it. What's your hours of operation?
I would most likely be between the hours of 10 o'clock in the morning till about 8 to 9 o'clock at night.
10 to 9?
10 to 9.
Is that Monday through Friday?
Monday through Friday, and Saturday and Sunday, just probably an hour later, till 10 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner remarks? Mr.
I have a question about trained staff and certification of the staff. Do you have any documentation that says that the staff is trained and where they're trained?
It will be at the establishment. IAPA does bring their members their employees that are done for training and staffing, which at the completion of training, they'll receive a certification of a completion, as well as we will have posted in our office everyone who has been trained and certified.
My next question deals with safety, and because children are going to be bouncing around and everything else, they can get overheated, they can bounce the wrong way, get injured. How well will the staff be able to handle safety or emergency situations?
Well, all apparatuses have a limit requirement of children inside of an apparatus. Might it be an inflatable bounce, an obstacle course, or even a mechanical apparatus at the location. There is a certain amount that is only that's required through each apparatus that you're allowed. So let's say an inflatable bounce that's 15 by 15 squared. The most amount of children inside the bounce is 5 to 6.
Okay.
Just an example.
Are there people that, let's say, and I've known the situation has come up, some children get, they need an EpiPen injection because they get overheated. Is there anybody that will be able to do that?
There will be, and also in our applications for our liability applications, we will have that noted if there's any special treatment that their child will be needed within any time.
And safety equipment will be available?
Correct.
Any other commissioner remarks? Mr.
What past experience do you have in this type of business?
I have 15 years of children's entertainment experience, going through, coming from New York. I was in association with a company called Sen and the Clowns Corporation, a very big, well-known establishment out of New York, getting to network with IAPA as well, having that knowledge and experience. That's what I bring to the table in as far as creating our establishment. I'm sorry?
You had the same certifications?
Yes.
I have a bachelor's degree in early childhood. I was a teacher for 12 years. I also work for Goodwin College, and I am into the education field. So definitely this is not only, it's going to be fun for the kids, but at the same time, we know what is needed to make it safe and entertaining. and we reside in Newington, so we want something that our own kids can enjoy. So definitely the best that we can do for our kids, it's also for the public.
Okay, if that's it, we'll open it up to the public. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you.
Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Anyone in opposition to this application, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Commissioner. Good evening, council members. I am Michael Dehas. I live at 589 Churchill Drive. I am the president of the abutting condominium complex. We have two separate legal complexes. To my side is Anna Eddy. She's the president of CB, of the Churchill Bridge 1 complex, which starts at Main Street. Together we have 224 resident units. That road is very important to us, and I have quite a few safety concerns that have existed already and that are now going to be exacerbated. I'll start with just that access road. When you come out that access road, because the people that live on CD2, especially towards the Berlin Turnpike, the second phase that I'm the president of, we use that more, probably more, but not, that's not concrete, but we do use it a lot. It's closer. And when you come out, I've seen people try to go northbound on the south to north to south turnaround, and there's no separate lane for that to happen. So people tend to do that at that, I'm talking about the Churchill Drive entranceway there. So that's already an existing problem. We have a lot of cut-through people there. If you look at those building numbers to the left bottom of the screen that's up there, that's our last row of buildings, but a little farther up that road, our phase doesn't have any buffer zone. The road is where you park your car to the condos on each side of the road. The road goes right through there, and we already have too many people cutting through fast. We have a lot of children. We put up children playing. We put up speed limit. We used to have a gate, but the fire marshal made us take it down. It was right by that back parking lot because we had to allow egress. But also, so I'm concerned about that turnaround, and I was hoping, you know, there's a lot of thoughts, but I was hoping that coming into the plaza, at a minimum, you could only come in from that Churchill Drive side and not go out, because one other problem, that road is not very wide, and when you come off the Berlin Turnpike into Churchill Drive, you don't have a slow-down lane. You're coming off the Berlin Turnpike, and you want to slow down, but there's always somebody on your tail, and people tend to come in pretty quick. And I've seen it happen where people come out of that plaza, and they go wide out of that plaza, and they're in your way. And with distracted, I don't want to say parents are distracted. I have 3 boys that are older, but I know how that goes. So I'm concerned about the cut-through traffic. I'm concerned about the danger of that access right there. I'm also concerned about the back parking lot. That parking lot is not very large, and it's very dark, and it's also in an area that is a blind spot. We have some curves over there, and people travel pretty fast, and there's a lot of littering and all kinds of things. It's not well lit. Another problem we have a right for access over there. When we snow plow in the winter, you know, it's the way the development was done, but phase 2 was squeezed in pretty tight. Our contractors have had a lot of problems pushing snow around, and we've designated places to put it, try to make it more, you know, easy for them. But what ends up happening is people park their cars along that access road all the way up to that building, so we can get snow plowing done. And it becomes a one-lane road, a bottleneck, right to the south side of that diagram where it looks wooded. There's a road there. The road continues there. It's a bottleneck. It's a one-lane road whenever there's a winter storm, which happened quite a few times this past winter, and it's very dangerous. And I'm very concerned about the high level. This will be. We're not opposed to the business. We just need some kind of safety
its safety to be addressed. That's our big concern. So I think I've talked about most of it. It's just, I'd rather have people come out of that plaza farther down so they use a proper turnaround. I'm worried about the width of that road for our snow season. I'm worried about the blind spot. I'm worried about people cutting through more often. We have speed bumps. It doesn't deter them. We have children there that play outside the front of their unit. We have concerns with our kids, and I believe this will attract people from other towns that think it's faster to cut through. It never has been, but they will still do it anyway. Or don't know the way. It looks like an easy way to go. So that's my concerns to representing our unit owners.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anna Eddy. I live at 41 Churchill Way, and I am the president of the Churchill Bridge 1 Association. I support all of Mike D. Haas's comments, Mike being the president of Churchill Bridge 2. One of the things Mike did not note when he talked about the access coming south on the Berlin Turnpike and turning into the complex, there is a little mini island, and on that mini island there's a pole. The pole forces people to go right or left. Hopefully if they're going south, they're going to go to the right as they exit. But it doesn't, if somebody comes down, like you said, people are traveling quite fast, and there's just not a lot of room there to maneuver. So that is a safety concern. And foremost in our minds is the safety of excited children as they arrive and depart the proposed activity center. We are not against the activity center. It's just the safety of the children and the vehicles leaving. On another note, when the plaza was originally developed, the property owner of the plaza was responsible for the access road from the Berlin Turnpike into the plaza, and this access road also extends into the Churchill Bridge complex. This road has not been kept up over the years and currently has excessively high frost heaves for the 224 unit owners and their vehicles at Churchill Bridge, who may or may not use this entrance. The situation becomes precarious when two vehicles pass each other and they're trying to navigate around these frost heaves. There's just no room to maneuver. So that we are respectfully asking that the plaza owners be requested to repair the road so that it is level again. And again, I thank you all for your time and patience listening to us, and have a good night.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition to this application? The applicant, if you would like to rebut the
We appreciate your concern and suggestion regarding to the establishment there at the Turnpike. As far as in relation to the back parking lot, we were planning to have that for staff parking. So like that, there is easy access for our visitors to come in through the front, unless specified that we're using it for a private function, that we can use the back parking lot, as well as talking to the rest of the tenants in the plaza to have our staff park on the southern side of the parking lots within the plaza. And of course, speaking to the property owner, which is Mr. Alan Surkoff, in regards to the certain repairs of the road at the establishment in and around the location as well. In regards to having that one exit from the other apartment complexes, we had spoken and in agreement with the property owner that would most likely just be used for emergency vehicles if needed. Besides that, we would put signage up for no exiting for any other vehicles besides the town emergency department, such as fire or ambulance. and police. In regards to the blind spots, as we stated before, having video cameras in and around the premises to ensure the safety of vehicles going through, especially during the weekend in high-volume circumstances, and as well as at night, having blind spots, we would be more than happy to have lighting as well. With today's technology, LEDs is as bright as they can be, so that can be helpful as well. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, and everyone else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner remarks at this time. How do you want to proceed? Commissioner Sobieski?
Yes, just to address the crossover there, that was moved because of the driveway at the Churchill Bridge. The DOT did move that down farther to eliminate people pulling out and trying to cross over into the northbound weave of 15. I think it was done in 2004 or 6. With regard to the private road, we have the same issue, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, at Glen Oaks. And I think the only thing that could be done there is maybe some signing at the condo owner's expense. Other than that, I don't really see an issue with this.
It's the pleasure of the commission at this time with this application. Commissioner Fox?
I don't see why we can't close it.
Make a motion to close, move to old business.
Second.
Motion made and second, move business for next meeting or next meetings, Mr. Sobieski?
Yes.
Next meeting. Any discussion on the motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're moving it to old business for the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bless you.
Okay, that ends the public portion of the meeting. We have other items on the agenda. Next item is approval of minutes. We just got the revisions tonight, so I suggest we read them and act on them at the next meeting. So please have that on the agenda. Next item.
Is that this?
Yes, right. If you notice, there are 38 pages in what you just got tonight versus 20, 25 pages. It's new. It's because the clerk was able to use a CD that was made of the recording to reproduce some of the missing tape, because the tape got mangled. That's why the tape, the minutes were as short as they were.
Where did the CD come from?
We now have digital recording. The council uses it, and so somebody turned it on at the last meeting, just kind of serendipitously, and because it was running, the clerk was able to use it.
I just want to make sure it's property of Newington, not from an outside source.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is new business. I'm going to read petition 1018.
Petition 1018, site plan approval at 475 Willard Avenue. Infinity Group applicant, Shelbourne, Newington LLC, owner Brandon Anfield, P.E., 191 Norwich Ave, Lebanon, Connecticut, contact.
In here? State your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Brandon Hanfield with the Annick River Consultants, owner of the civil engineering firm and professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. I'm here representing the applicant Infinity Group, as well as the owner Shelbourne Newington LLC. The property in question is 475 Willard Avenue, which is the tax assessor address. And we do have some presentation materials aboard. If it helps the commission, we also have a flash drive with the maps that can be put up on the screen. I will leave it up to you in terms of what level of detail you'd like.
Yeah, Mr. Hanfield, could you give just a thumbnail description of what it is so the commissioners know whether they need to have a copy in front of them or not?
Absolutely, I'm sorry. To briefly describe what we're doing, the existing facility at 475 Willard Avenue is a very large building that's actually accessed off of Alumni Drive. The building on there is about 615,000 square feet. The property is a little under 42 acres. Our application is not changing the footprint of the building or the general use of the building. What we're looking to do is similar to what they did back in 2006, which is expand the loading docks in the eastern face of the building. So right now there are a number of loading docks where trucks can come into the area, back up into the building. One of the tenants of the building is asking 2 more overhead doors be added to the eastern face of the building and an existing loading dock be extended to cover those 2 new overhead doors. So in general, all of our work is within the limits of existing pavement. We are not impacting existing vegetation or trees significantly. And the only other real change other than the loading dock is we're proposing a fence be installed from the building face to the edge of parking on each end of this tenant's space to limit access for pedestrians and vehicles into that area where trucks are maneuvering.
Basically, it's site plan modification.
Yeah, it's a very minor site plan modification. We did receive from the Inland Wetlands agent administrative approval from the Conservation Commission, and we have received comments from the engineering department. We were able to address those over the last couple of days, and it's my understanding that our responses were acceptable. But I will let staff comment further on that.
Yeah, I don't think there's anywhere on this plan that makes any sense to someone who hasn't looked at them quite a few times. So maybe, Mr. Hanfield, maybe if you just come up and point to what it is that's being changed on the plan. And I can scroll to whichever one you think is the better.
That plan there, I also have one that's color, which helps a little bit, but I will come up and point. I don't know if there's a microphone I can carry that up. There we go. All right, so
start from the beginning.
Yeah, we can start from the next page, the second sheet, which is, this is the existing survey, the general condition survey. So Alumni Road is at the bottom of the page or to the south, Willard Avenue is to the right or to the east. The property boundary is rectangular in shape. This is the building here, which is about, again, 615,000 square feet, and off to the north and west, you'll see Piper Brook and the railroad. So that gives a pretty good orientation. Site access is from Alumni Road, so there's one access here that serves a main loop road, and there's a secondary access further to the west, also off Alumni Road, that serves the uses to the west of the building. And just so you know where we're working, it's right in this area here. So we're staying within the existing limits of parking, and we're adding 2 doors. So if you go to the next sheet, you'll see this is a detailed survey. Again, no proposed information, but it was really meant for our design. There are 2 overhead doors here with a loading dock platform. We're proposing to add 2 more overhead doors in this location here. So for the most recent activity on this site, I want to say is the jump on in use, which would be right here. And this is the area where they park and where they access. So we'll be working just to the south of that. The next sheet.
Question. That, to the left, that little T looking, is that going to be proposed new? Because that's not there right now, is it?
That is there. Okay. Yes. Yep. And there are 2 trees on it, 1, 2, and there's a sidewalk here with a flagpole. And you'll see on the next sheet that we are, so This is just your context plan to kind of show the tenants and the general access, no different. As you make your way up here, this is the proposed condition. So your T is right here. We're just proposing to round out that radius for trucks that need to turn, but we are keeping the tree. That was one of the comments from staff that we addressed. So really, again, 2 existing doors here, adding a door here and here, and expanding the loading dock from here over to the north, which is basically the existing limit of curbing. So again, we're staying within the pavement. Grading will match. These are all loading docks you see here. Again, that part of that 2004 change. So there's 1, 2, 3. There's an existing 4th here that we're extending for 2 additional doors. Thank you.
Staff comments?
There were no planning comments on it because it is really just an engineering project. The town engineering staff has reviewed it, and they had a number of comments that they asked the applicants to address. The applicants have satisfied the town engineer that they can revise the plans to his satisfaction. So I'm prepared to recommend approval tonight with the condition that they address the town engineer's recommendations, and I have a draft suggested motion for the commission.
Any commissioner comments?
Question.
Laffey.
Is this for a new use in that building or an expansion of the
I believe it's a
current?
new business. Mr. Hanfeld?
It is actually not a new business. They're reconfiguring the inside. And again, Blake Leonard with the Infinity Group is here to back me up. But one of the tenants is Huddig. They're changing the internal configuration. And the other, I think they're swapping spaces with Davison Food. So it's same 2 tenants, just really reconfiguring the internal space.
Okay, thank you. So may I ask you, what is the business that they're renovating in the Alumni Road end of that structure?
They're not the Alumni Road end of it. Was there something in the plan that you thought that they were?
No, that whole building there,
Right, here's the whole building.
bottom right corner.
Right.
They're currently, someone's working in that.
Oh, I don't, I'm not aware of what's going on there.
In that part of that 600,000 square feet?
I'll ask the
That was my
the
question.
zoning enforcement officer if he could shed some light on who's in there.
Of course, I can't
They don't
abet
need
it.
approval. That's why I don't
I
know,
think,
because they don't need our permission.
I think they're not doing anything, they're renovating the interior of the building for occupancy, but they're not doing anything other than just minor configuration inside. It's going to be an industrial operation. That's the tenant to the south. I think that was the former Jean's. Mm-hmm. And there's a blue sign right on the corner now. I think it's ADS. Yeah, that blue.
So ADS is separate from your operation? Okay. That's what thank you.
Okay, I'm going to get a motion to move this to old business. Don't move for action. Second. Motion made and second. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We put this on for old business. Item D. That brings us to old business. You want to read petition 02-18. Dominic.
Petition 0218, zoning text amendment, section 3.410 and section 9.2, Amy Barubi, 172 Indian Hill Road, Newington, Connecticut, applicant.
Thank you.
I just passed out a brief memo from me to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'll read it. I want to correct something that I said about other town zoning regulations during the public hearing on March 14th. According to the minutes, I said Glastonbury, yes, by special permit in commercial zones, and West Hartford, yes, by right in commercial zones. In Glastonbury, commercial kennels are not allowed in commercial zones, but they are allowed by special permit in the country residence zone and the rural residence zone. In West Hartford, a kennel is permitted as an accessory use in all residential zones by special permit.
Thank you. So noted for the record. Okay, I'll open it up to commissioners for deliberations on the special
Text amendment.
text amendment under section 3.4.10. Commissioner Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is, I guess, finally a culmination of about 3 or 4 months of listening to residents, local residents and clients regarding this, regarding the application of special permit that follows this. And there was a number of comments at our last meeting, and while I not, this text amendment is, I don't 100%, it's not perfect. But I think if anything we do on a special permit, whether it's for Ms. Berube or any future applicants, anything that has not been kind of taken care of in this text amendment, can be taken care of by conditions. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time we faced a long list of conditions on an application. And even the last meeting was no different than any other meeting regarding the Ruby. It was contentious, and I dare to say some tempers flared, and I really don't think that was proper. But right now, that's all I'll say. Unless somebody else says something that I can add to or talk about. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Claffey.
Mr. Planner, in this packet you gave us, dated March 22nd, a little memo under staff comments at the bottom.
March 22nd. Okay, I'm not with you. I have a March 21.
Packet, go to the third page of it starts with the 21st.
Okay, that's the next application. That's the special permit application. So don't look at that one yet.
Just going in order of what's in front of me. Does that not?
Yeah, you went beyond.
Not go back to that? That question.
Hold that question for later. You were talking about the memo that I wrote for the next application, so hold that question for the next application.
Yes, I also agree with Commissioner Fox that there's some tempers that flare and some issues. However, I believe that this is, a form of a business in a residential zone, which we've allowed, like daycare. We've also allowed attorneys to be operating out of their house. Some other companies are cleaning houses, house cleanings out of their houses also. I kind of think we've beat this thing to death, so I think we should get this one way or the other tonight. Thank you.
Any other commissioner remarks? Mr. Camillo, anything at this time? Commissioner Claffey, anything else?
I'm just confused at what's in front of me and how.
Okay, the only thing in front of you is the 2-page memo dated March 21. That's the only thing in front of you for now. Because right now, the commission is only discussing the proposed text amendment.
Mr. Payne.
Mr. Chairman, through you, Commissioner Fox said that he wasn't thrilled with this text amendment, and I would be interested in hearing any modifications or conditions that he's thinking of. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, in answering Commissioner Payne, not very much, Commissioner. Maybe talking about hours, actually hours of pickup and drop off, and maybe a little bit on the fence, but, you know, I think Mr. Ruby has waited long enough to make for us to make a decision here, and I would rather not see a large number of modifications proposed now. Maybe one or two, you know, like little tweakings, because I really can't see pushing this off until for another public hearing, which would have to happen if we made too many changes in this.
You can modify and approve with conditions, and you stated that you weren't real happy with this text amendment, so I'm asking you, what do you propose?
No, I did not say I wasn't real happy. All I said was, like most things that we see, it's not perfect.
Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Clapp.
Mr. Planner, have you explain this in your write-up?
Which memo?
That would be your memo dated March 21st for today's petition 02-18.
Right, okay, yeah.
Could elaborate on that and or read it for the
Oh,
people
certainly.
that can't read it.
Certainly, okay. Description of petition number 02-18. This is a petition to amend section 3.4, special permits allowed in all residential zones. Wait a minute, let's put it on the screen.
And let me clarify that these are your comments then, is a description of this to guide us as a commission, correct?
Correct, these are my comments on the current application.
Application to
02-18.
guide
Correct.
TPZ Commission. Thank you.
All right, I'll read it. This is a petition to amend section 3.4, special permits allowed in all residential zones, by adding a new paragraph that deals exclusively with in-home dog sitting. The petition would also put a definition of in-home dog care in section 9.2 definitions. Staff comments. The proposed amendment includes a definition of in-home dog care, which specifies overnight stays and a maximum number of dogs, 5, not including the operator's personal dogs. The regulations contain a number of requirements and restrictions, including that the property be fenced, hosted dogs must have proof of recent vaccination, strict control of drop-off and pickup, no excessive barking, and the operator must obtain a pet facility license from the Connecticut Department of Agriculture. Those requirements, plus the standard requirements for obtaining a special permit contained in section 5.2, procedures and standards for all special permits, appear to give TPZ sufficient discretion in approving or denying a given application. I have no objection to creating a zoning framework whereby someone could apply for permission to provide in-home dog care under the provisions of section 3.4.4, home occupations and professional offices. However, I question the need to approve a carve-out for in-home dog care. I think the existing home occupation regulations in section 5.2 already give TPZ sufficient discretion to approve or deny on a case-by-case basis. Creating a carve-out implies that other potential home occupation activities, which are not expressly mentioned in section 3.4.4, such as creating specialty baked goods or providing assistance with finding college scholarships, might also not be appropriate in a residential zone.
Thank you for...
Commissioner Payne.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, could the town planner please explain to us the staff report dated January 17, 2018, which I believe him and the enforcement officer stated that this type of business is a kennel and it's not allowed in residential zones. Well, I don't have that memo in front of me, but I don't think
I don't believe I have ever said that it is a kennel. I have said that it could be found to be a kennel, but if you're asking me for my personal opinion,
No, I'm not asking you for your personal opinion. We had a conversation at this table here. You pulled your little blue book of definitions out, and we talked about it, and you said anything that was boarding overnight was a kennel.
oh, I read it, oh, what you're telling me, what you're reminding me is that I read a definition of kennel from a publication. Anything else at this point? Any other commissioner remarks, comments? Got a motion? Commissioner Claffey.
Through you, Chairman Aida, I don't know if there needs to be a little discussion on, we use a term in zoning, and most towns do, it's called spot zoning, which they try not to have done because it can become illegal. The reason I wanted the description of what Mr. Planner Greg Miner read was carve-out zoning. It can be implied that there's different ways to facilitate an at-home occupancy or service business, and the potential here is to start having this carve-out for in-home service providers for in-home businesses. I think that's noted, needs maybe discussed by this commission of the potential problem the town residents face in residential zones of different service businesses that could pop up or be carved out in their neighborhood. And I'm not speaking of commercial zones or Berlin Turnpike zones or anywhere where a commercial or industrial zoning is already at. I'm speaking more of these residential zones, all residential zones. There needs to be a little discussion that residents in this town understand the potential impact to the residential zone by having a carved out in-home business zone, because that's basically what we're looking at making here.
Any other commissioner remarks? Mr. Fox?
Yeah, through the chairman, Commissioner Claffey has, kind of stated that we're kind of, maybe I misunderstood spot zoning, but if, I don't know, if the town planner through you can, kind of explain it a little more, carve out.
He doesn't use the word spot zoning, he used the word.
All right, carve out, all right? I don't see a thing being carved out. I don't know if you're talking about carving out for this particular applicant or carving out a zone for a particular, for this particular business. And, I don't see anything wrong there.
I'll explain my intent on what I mean by carve out for residential zones. It's a form of spot zoning. It's a...
We're going through a lot of those tonight.
It has potential when we have a zoning officer here in town that fights service businesses that illegally operate out of their homes, landscapers, contractors, builders. Unfortunately, it's that industry that brings home trailers and trucks and dump trucks and forms blight. All I'm saying with carve out is basically you're taking a completely 100% residential zone. If it be any residential zone in town, I'm not speaking specifically to this applicant. I brought it with a broad brush because you really have to think of when you take an in-home business as a service business, as it's been discussed in previous meetings many times, and a service business is different than a CPA who works out of his house or a I think non-service business, anywhere where no vehicles come to them or no employees, all the employees may be in-home, it just starts to take a residential neighborhood and you could have as Greg Miner, the planner, has stated, a person who wants to operate a cupcake cooking business, and then the kitchen's too small, so now they're in the garage, and now it's just trucks have come to drop off material, pick up product. You just get to a point where we haven't discussed it enough, where if everyone's okay with a carve-out, meaning I have a residential house here, I have a residential house here, but inside that house, now I have a service business which opens it to employees coming, trucks being there, pickups, deliveries, etc. It's just, that's what I mean by carve-out. I use spot because in the past, municipalities have used the word of spot zoning, where you have a commercial zone here, and then someone wanted something changed, so they spot zone that next parcel so they could get what they wanted. I'm not saying that's here, but the potential for this carve-out could be detrimental to the Newington neighborhoods that are purely residential only. Thank you.
Commissioner Payne?
Yeah. Doesn't it say, Commissioner, that service businesses aren't allowed in residential zones? I thought that's what it
Yes.
said.
It gives descriptions of some service businesses.
I thought that maybe the applicant was going to rewrite the 3.151, which says veterinarian hospitals and kennels, but only when the kennel is operated as an accessory to the veterinarian hospital. I personally think that's kind of strict, and I would be, I was hoping that they were going to address the commercial end of it, where we would have open it up so that it wasn't so restrictive on the commercial side. I think it's extremely important that we have to protect the residential property and the quality of life in the residential zones. And if you look at our regulations, I'd like the other commissioners to tell me if they look up dogs, dog kennels, I don't see it anywhere under the home occupation business. Maybe I'm missing something. But like Commissioner Claffey said, it's a service business. Service businesses aren't allowed in residential zones. And then, you know, you also have to look at Regulation 1.2.1, which states uses that aren't stated are not permitted. So I just don't know if putting it in a residential zone is something that we want to open up.
Any other, Commissioner Fox?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through the chair. Lost my train of thought. Commissioner Payne, we have talked about kennels as versus dog daycare. And I think service business, as Commissioner Claffey talked about, as far as I'm concerned, that would be a pretty subjective decision. I think we want to be as objective as we can here. Is this a service business? Is a CPA a service business? Is an attorney working out of his home in a service business?
Those are more office-type uses, Mr. Fox. And when you talk about a service business, you're talking about hair salons, hairdressers, those type of operations, the dog grooming operations. Those are all listed in.
Yeah, I agree with you. Dog grooming, occupations and beauticians, et cetera, not permitted there. But this is neither one of them. None of them. There's no dog grooming going on. There's no veterinarian services or anything going on. This is basically a woman taking care of clients who would like to have their dog taken care of during the day. without too much trouble. As some people said, the industrial feeling, being able to take care of dogs and have them, frolic around with each other. And I
Mr.
don't know,
Fox,
maybe
you have
being
to
too
make a
picky.
determination whether you want to make a broad sweeping change to our regulations by carving out doggy daycare for as amended here, or through the next application where it's a part of a home occupation. So you have to make a determination in your own mind which one you can't have it both ways. Either you're going with the text amendment or you're going with the home occupation. There's two applications here, so
Yes, I
you, in your mind, you have to justify which one you are more comfortable with. This application, this text amendment, I thought was going to come in under the kennel portion of the regulation to address that. It did not. It carved out a specific section specifically for in-home dog care. It does not address anywhere the kennel amendment to the kennel regulation. Commissioner Sobieski.
Yeah, again, we're not, maybe I've missed the point here, but we're not dealing with a kennel. We're dealing with just a doggy daycare. And every time I've heard anybody say anything at this commission here, it's kennel, kennel, kennel. We have...
The zoning regulations do not define an in-home dog care. The only place that it's defined is under a kennel.
Right, and that's why...
Tell me in the regulations where this is defined.
Right. What I'm saying, that's why this is being carved out this way, as a home occupation. All right? I would not want to see a kennel in a residential zone. But that's not what this is. Thank you.
Mr. Payne.
With all due respect to the commissioner, the town planner gave us an opinion of a kennel, and his opinion was, from his definition of blue books, was any if the dogs are boarding overnight, it's a kennel. So I don't know how you get around this. You can't, you're mixing words of, it's only dog sitting. Well, if it was only dog sitting, then she wouldn't be boarding them at night. So,
Mr. Chairman, through you to the Commissioner Payne, would it make more sense just to say during the day and no overnight boarding? Would that make a difference in your mind?
That's not what they came in and asked for. But if you want to make modifications, you're asking to you would like to modify this by putting special conditions on, then be my guest.
Mr. Planner, you brought up in your write-up, and I'll read it, the last paragraph, says, I think the existing home occupation regulations in section 5.2, I'm going to ask for your professional opinion or guidance here, but if you go to section 5.2 for special permits, did anyone look at all the rest of those under 5.2? Did we all read those as commissioners? Because when you issue a special permit, you're not just issuing it for yourself. You are, but you're issuing it for the future of the town. And we have to take into consideration 5.2 from 5.2.1 all the way down to 5.2.9. And there's a lot of stuff in there about, look at 5.2.6. A, the need for the proposed use in the proposed location. B, the existing and probable future character of the neighborhood in which the use is located. That's a big point to what you're allowing here, or what we as a commissioner are looking to allow. That's an open-ended home occupancy future for any type, that could put in one neighborhood hundreds of, not that it would happen, I'm just hypothetical, to get some, kind of get the conversation a little rolling here. It doesn't seem it wants to go anywhere. Just take that in consideration, that you could have, every house could become a in-home dog kennel if you want to overnight, or pet sitting facility. Your thoughts as the planner for the town of Newington?
Well, would it matter to anybody if the proposed text amendment was revised to prohibit overnight stay? Would that make a difference to anybody?
I would still have other concerns on the amount of dogs and the protection of the residential neighbors and everything. I mean, I've been on and off this commission for a long, long time. I've been served as an alternate. I've served as a commissioner, vice chairman, chairman, and the way dog kennels and this type of business has been treated in the past has always been under 3.15.1, which falls under the veterinarian hospital, has to be tied into that. That's how it's always been treated on this commission as long as I can ever remember. The chairman goes back even farther than I do. I don't ever recall, and just recently we talked about a kennel opening up in a commercial zone. We talked about it here at the commission, and it was determined that it wouldn't be allowed because it was a groomer that wanted it and not a veterinarian hospital. And I think it's that's a tough regulation. I think that should be changed. That regulation should be modified so that this type of business can be allowed in all commercial zones. It doesn't have to be tied into a groomer. It doesn't have to be tied into a veterinarian hospital. It gives somebody an opportunity, like Ms. Berube, to go rent a small little space. There's plenty of spaces out there where you could operate and run this business and grow and prosper it in a commercial area away from the residential zones, which has to be protected.
Mr. Fox.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe in the future, I think as far as kennels are concerned, that is kind of a tough regulation. But maybe in the future, or maybe in the near future, we can work on changing, opening that up a little bit. But in the meantime, we have a going little business here that hasn't upset very many people, if any at all. And we're just looking to amend the regulation to allow her to do that.
Ready for a motion? Mr. Camillo.
One other thing, it says here that the property should be fenced in. Well, it should have a privacy fence. Should have a privacy fence. It doesn't say that there. And if you're going to have a text amendment, that should be in there. The other thing, it should be 4 dogs, not 5. That would be a restriction, but... Just have to go ahead and make the motion and see where the vote goes. The motion is? Yeah, I got it.
You got one for,
Thank you.
text amendment. Go ahead.
You need a motion.
Go ahead.
You make a motion?
Go ahead.
02-18, zoning text amendment, section 3.4.10 and section 9.2. Amy Berube, 172 Indian Hill Road, Newington, Connecticut, applicant contact. I move to deny petition 02-18, zoning text Text Amendment, Section 3.4.10 and Section 9.2, Amy Berube, 172 Indian Hill Road, Newington, Connecticut applicant. Findings. 1. Commercial dog care operations in residential zone in a densely developed town such as Newington would put an undue burden on neighbors. 2. Unlike some towns, Newington does not limit the number of dogs that a person can have. The proposed regulation will allow up to 5 dogs, not including the operator's own dogs. That would result in an unknowable number of dogs at such an operation. 3. Newington's Plan of Conservation and Development states that home businesses should not be permitted to cause a nuisance for neighbors. Evaluation of home business by special exception standards and conditions will be implemented to protect residential properties. Page 38, item 22.
Motion made.
Second?
Motion made and second. Any discussion from the commission members? We will have a roll call vote. Chairman will vote last in case of a tie.
Commissioner Payne,
Yes.
Commissioner Fox, Commissioner Sobieski,
No.
Commissioner Claffey,
Yay.
Commissioner Camillo,
Yay.
Commissioner Braverman,
No.
Commissioner Aida.
Yes. Motion, passes 4-3. Next item on the agenda, petition 3417, special permit.
Petition 34-17, special permit, section 3.4.4, home occupation at 172 Indian Hill Road, Amy Berube, 172 Indian Hill Road, Newington, Connecticut. Owner, applicant, contact.
I'm passing out. I believe it was emailed to everybody over the weekend, but I'm paper copies.
Chairman?
Yes.
I'm looking right at you. I can't even think of your name. Sorry. Planner Minor. This, what you're handing out, this is your findings in leading us in our
This is my memo.
memo.
This is my memo, and I have a number of recommendations in there that you make findings so that they can then be the basis for making a good decision.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I ask, Mr. Planner, in what you just handed out, when we get to, which would be the fourth page, but it's not numbered, is that just minutes? What is
Yeah,
that?
right, exactly. Yes, that's just a condensation of the minutes from January 10th that dealt with this application.
And all those minutes from January 10th were approved at the following meeting? Or were there?
Oh, I don't recall when January 10th was approved.
My point is that those match what was approved January 10th,
These are the minutes from January 10th.
but not the full minutes, just an excerpt. But that's
Exactly,
not
it's an
explaining
excerpt.
that here.
Right, it's an excerpt, and I added some white space and highlighted some stuff to make it easier to read. The point was I wanted to make sure that you understood all the testimony of the
But I
of the
don't have
attorney.
all the testimony for all those minutes, so if anything was brought up after that or before it,
Okay, but the point of this is to focus on
then,
344.
but you're
Section
telling me only focus on 2 pages of minutes that could be 100 pages long.
Right. All I'm asking you to focus on are the applicants addressing section 3.444 and section 5.2.
Thank you.
Yes, ignore everything else you heard over the course of all those nights. No, no.
Okay, open up for commissioner comments at this time. No comments from the commissioners. Mr. Payne? Mr. Claffey?
I guess I'm going to go back to this is into these 2 pages of minutes, who's speaking? Is that,
For the applicant.
it's all, so these 2 pages are all from the attorney for the applicant of minutes. There was no interruptions, nothing. So if I took these 2 pages and coincided them with the minutes from that meeting, they would coincide.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes. Robin Pearson. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. These are all things that Robin Pearson said.
In consecutive order.
Yes.
Thank you.
I added some white space because otherwise there's one big block of text, maybe a couple of paragraphs.
Okay.
But I broke it up to be more readable.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
And I feel I have to say this, with all due respect to you and the other commissioners, I am getting the feeling that I've been getting ever since, I think it was October 11th, when the town planner presented this petition 34-17 for scheduling, and we were told that you had looked at the regulations, and it seemed to me, and I'll say this again, that you had went through a whole bunch of regulations, pertinent to this, and maybe it is subjective, but I got the feeling that you right away were not going to want to pursue this. And if we were to pursue it, as we wound up doing, that you would be inclined to, as the word I used before was contentious. And even now, I appreciate Commissioner Claffey's wish to make sure that these minutes are accurate, but I also see that as being a little contentious, just trying to find some flaws. Thank you.
Mr. Claffey?
The reason I bring it up, Commissioner Fox, is, I'm looking at page 3, and Mr. Planner, please show me where on page, I'll show you on page 3, you bring up January 10th, on page 3. Am I not seeing it in her minutes, how that, discussing number 3, item 3 on page 3, about halfway through that bottom paragraph, it says Attorney Pearson stated on January 10th, and it goes on.
I'm sorry, now what, okay, you're no longer looking at minutes, you're now looking at something else.
I'm going back to why I brought this up and why Mr. Fox had inquired about it.
Right.
and I am pretty cut and dry, black and white. I've been around building code.
So what is it you're trying to
My
compare, and
question
I'll
here
help you
is,
compare them,
I asked you about these 2 pages, which are unnumbered,
which are minutes.
which are
You can
minutes,
tell by the text, the font's
By your
different from my
text.
memo.
but when I look at your page 3, it brings up number 3 of page 3, halfway through that paragraph, it says, Attorney Pearson stated on January 10, 2018, about the obtain a state of Connecticut Department of Agriculture pet facility license. Does that not pertain to what we're discussing on these unnumbered pages? So would that not be part of the minutes that I should?
Okay, I'm not following you. Okay, go back to, there's something in my memo that you're referring to.
I asked you in the beginning, which brought this up, that these 2 pages are everything to do with,
No, they're not everything.
and that was my question of why
Right.
we don't have the minutes to research that.
Right, because those weren't relevant to the point that I was making in the memo. Hopefully, you would have read back and looked through the minutes of those meetings prior to tonight.
But just getting this today in hard copy is the first time I've read this. Hence
Well,
why I'm-
no.
As a hard copy on public records, the first time I've received this in a hard copy in a public forum.
Okay, but this is not the first time you read the minutes from January 10th, and that's all this is the minutes from January 10th, which you read before.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner remarks, comments at this time?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Payne?
unfortunately, the applicant picked a business that's highly regulated with the state and with the town. Small businesses are tough under the regulations. Commissioner Claffey runs a chauffeur business. He just wants to drive a few people up to the airport, and you could imagine the federal regulations that he has to go through. Commissioner Woods runs a landscaping business, but he has to apply fertilizer, and he has massive federal regulations he has to comply with. I have a small material yard, and I have a dump truck, a triaxle, and the regulations are unbelievable. And when I drive down the road, and if I didn't pay a fee for the unified carrier registration, and I get pulled over, they don't care if I didn't know what I had to do. It was my responsibility to know everything about that business that I started. This is a tough thing. I think the residential property has to be protected. I think I'm relying on the testimony from our commercial, from our planner and our enforcement officer, who stated in January 17th that kennels are not allowed in residential zones. So I can't support this.
Mr. Chairman? Commissioner Payne, I think you're comparing orange to apples here, Dominic. You are talking about your particular business. You have a a triaxle and a couple of other vehicles, and when you're on the road, you need to be safe. The state and federal government want to make sure that you are not putting anybody in danger. So you need to have these regulations. Commissioner Woods, same thing. He has to use fertilizer, so he's got to make sure that he's not going to harm the surroundings, the environment, or the health of anybody else. And Commissioner Crafty, he has his limousine service. Again, he has certain regulations to which he has to adhere, and that's because when he's on the road, he needs to make sure that everybody else on the road is safe. And I would even say Commissioner Camillo, same thing. He has an awful lot of regulations to which he has to adhere. and it's because of the safety situation. Ms. Barugi has none of that. So I really don't see the comparison. Thank you.
Well, it's regulated by the state.
The kennel businesses are regulated by the state for public health and safety of the dogs. It's a highly regulated business, so I beg your pardon on it.
Mr. Sobieski.
Yes, and again, Commissioner Payne, we're not dealing with the kennel here. We're dealing with dog sitting. All right? That's all I'm saying. I'm not going to I don't want to split hairs. I'm just making that point clear. That our regulations clearly says kennels for veterinary hospitals, etc. This is something totally different, out of the box, so to speak. This is more like a home business. All right? Again, if there's an issue with the dogs, a dog staying overnight, then maybe that's what we need to look at modifying. I think at the I remember at the testimony here, we had one person at the first hearing who complained about it, and we had quite a few people who were in favor of it. The last hearing, we had quite a few people in favor of it. We opened up to town-wide, and we had 2 or 3 other people who were questioning it. And one they were questioning was the height of the fence, and et cetera. Now, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong here, I believe she had a 6-foot-high stockade fence. I believe that there was no other complaints at all to the animal control officer, which was looked at several times. Now, that's my point here. And again, I'm not trying to split hairs. Our regulations deal with kennels. Okay? So maybe it's time we should kind of maybe think out of the box. I do want to protect the residential zone. And we can put a condition on if there's an issue, we could yank the permit. All right, we've done that before. So that's my point. Thank you.
So where in the regulations does, can you show me that today, that deals with doggy daycare? There's no, also in the regulations it states if it's not stated, it's not an allowed use.
Right.
So
and
how
see,
do you explain that? How do you explain those
it's the
regulations?
same way I would explain the chicken issue we have going on in town.
Which is what?
People who have chickens who, again, they're not in the regulations, but, you know, we've had that going on for a while. We have other...
That's an enforcement issue, Commissioner Sobieski.
I rest my case.
Okay.
The only thing I can, Mr. Chairman, is I can't sit here and ignore the report that the staff gave us on January 17th, which said that basically that this is not allowed in residential zones. And it is a kennel. The planner gave us a definition of kennels. And I would like to see us immediately come up with a regulation for the commercial zone and put it on the agenda right away and try to loosen up the regulations in the commercial zones, any commercial zones, so that she could hopefully continue in a small commercial zone.
Mr. Camillo.
If this was passed, could we bring her back here in a year if there were no complaints and approve it then?
Yeah, you can put a 1-year subject to renewal condition on it.
Commissioner Claffey.
I'm going to tread lightly here, Mr. Planner. I am looking at the January 10, 2018 minutes. And I don't see in these 2 pages, if I'm wrong, please, it says Robin Pearson. This facility is called a pet facility license. I don't see that in these 2 pages. I would say that pertains to what we're discussing tonight.
Okay, what are you reading, and I'll tell you where.
You had said to me previously that everything that I had questioned you about, these unnumbered pages, had to pertain to our December.
No, what I said was it's an excerpt from January 10. Like it says, January 10. These are excerpts from January 10 minutes.
And I had asked you if they're all the excerpts from her, the attorney, and you said yes.
No, what I said was, all of this is from Attorney Pearson. This is not everything Attorney Pearson said on January 10th. Well, I've lost you.
You said it was in,
Form. Right, I just broke it out.
Yeah, and what
To
I'm saying
highlight
is
the-
there's more info on here that has to do with what we're discussing tonight that's not in these 2 pages. That's all I'm stating.
Absolutely. You had...
So how can I make a proper decision if I don't have all the documentation in front of me? to
Well,
what you
that's
want
an
to...
excellent question. What you might have wanted to do is to review your own notes from the hearings, read the minutes from the hearing, and then look at my memo, which only focuses on 2 very narrow but important points. It's not intended to be a complete summary of everything that went on the past couple of months. This excerpt from the January 10th minutes are only to address the question of whether the applicants, to your satisfaction, have addressed the conditions of Section 3.4.4 and whether they've addressed the conditions of Section 5.2.6. That's the only reason I gave you these minutes, not to imply that this is the only thing in all those minutes that you should be familiar with, only that this was the point that I wanted to specifically make in my memo.
But other items... All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
as I said at the beginning, we've been going through this for a long time, and I would like to ask one pointed question. Is everybody, I don't see anybody changing their mind here. I know Commissioner Claffey is definitely trying to get, as he always does, right down to the bottom of things.
It's your assumption.
Well, I'm not being nasty, Anthony. I'm just, he likes to get down to the bottom of things so he knows what he's talking about. Okay? So, what I'm getting at is, why don't we call the vote?
Well, there's no motion. There's no motion on the table, Mr. Fox. What do we call it? Call it a vote?
All right, I agree. Okay, then let me put it, well, then why don't somebody bring up the motion and vote on it?
Read the motion.
A motion, petition.
Thank you.
Petition 34-17, special permit, section 3.4.4, home occupation, 172 Indian Hill Road, Amy Berube, owner applicant contact. I move to deny petition 34-17, special permit, section 3.4.4, home occupation at 172 Indian Hill Road, Amy Berube, 172 Indian Hill Road, Newington, Connecticut, owner applicant contact. Findings. Number 1. The activity constitutes a kennel, which is not allowed in a residential zone. Number 2, the applicant does not comply with paragraph B of section 3.4.4 of zoning regulations. B, no evidence of occupation or office shall be visible outside the dwelling except an announcement sign not to exceed 2 square feet is permitted. 3, the application does not comply with paragraph E of section 3.4.4 of zoning regulations. E, zoning permit. The home occupation or office shall not be detrimental to the health and safety, welfare, and property values of the neighborhood.
There should be 4.
4, the applicant did not address the requirements of section 5.2.6 of the zoning regulations to the commissioner's satisfaction, specifically with regard to identity of all that may apply.
Okay, now this is what I'd asked you to try to do earlier tonight, is to go through these points and make a finding on them so that they can be parts of your decision or not, if you end up finding that the applicant did in fact address to your satisfaction those 8 items. So maybe you can read through them now and discuss each of those 7 items and decide whether the applicant satisfied you that they addressed those points.
A need for proposed use in the proposed location.
So did she satisfy you that there is a need for this use?
B,
Well, no, well, I'm going to answer those. Yeah, answer it, yeah. Yes. No, do them one, please do them one at a time, because they're all different.
We're discussing a motion.
He's in the middle of reading a motion.
It's a motion. You can discuss a motion?
Well, yes, or you could do the way I'm recommending, which is stop at this point.
Think about it.
I'm sorry, well,
Can you discuss a
all right,
motion?
go read the whole thing and then come back. Okay, yes, thank you.
B, the existing and probable future character of the neighborhood in which the use is located. C, the size, the type, and location of the main and accessory buildings in the relation to one another and in relation to other structures in the vicinity. D, traffic circulation within the site, amount, location, and access to parking, and traffic load or possible circulation problems on existing streets or proposed streets and driveways, considering impact on existing streets are affected for large-scale retail developments in excess of 40,000 square feet of a gross floor area of traffic. Impact analyst report for the proposed mitigation measures shall be submitted with the application. E, availability of public water and sewer, and possibly overloading of water and sewer systems, and the adequacy of the existing off-site stormwater system serving the property to the safe, accommodate, and increased in drainage, effective 12/1/01. F, location of the type of display signs, lighting, and landscaping, and the impact type of signs in adjacent property. G, safeguards to protect adjacent property and the neighborhood in general from detriment, including but not limited to proper buffering.
Second? So, discussion. Could you discuss item 4A, whether the applicant satisfied you that there is a need for the proposed use at the proposed location?
I'll take the floor first. Some of these, I feel, don't apply when your findings, in general, find that they don't, that it's not allowed in the homeowner's category, then some of these things in 5.2 don't apply. I see the one that does apply would be, I don't believe they convinced me that the adjacent properties and the residential properties are going to be protected, I think, from detriment. I believe that wasn't to my satisfaction. And since there was testimony from the public that there was some problems, and because the town planning and zoning has always treated dog kennels in commercial zones, I believe that that's a reason why I can't support this.
Right. Well, it's certainly possible that some of these 7 conditions don't apply to every special permit activity. These regulations are meant for all cases, and in not all cases will they all be applicable. So if some of these you want to decide are not applicable, that's fine. Eliminate them.
Do you think they should be eliminated from the motion?
No, I think you should go one by one through each of these items, and the ones that you think are not applicable, say so, but the ones that are applicable, make a decision among yourselves whether the applicants have satisfied you that they've addressed that condition, that requirement.
This is a first for us to do
No, the applicant always does it for you, and you listen to them. The applicant, in fact, did it during the January 10th testimony. But the burden is on you to find it, because the regulation requires that the commission to find that a proposed special permit won't have these impacts on a neighborhood. You do it sometimes in passing, but in this case, I think it's important that you do it by the book.
If this wasn't passed, can you put restrictions afterwards?
Well, you can make a well, what do you mean? If there was a motion to approve instead with conditions, certainly.
Excuse me a minute. Michael, yeah, I know, would you please speak closer to the mic? I can hardly hear you. Thank you.
We could address these one by one, and the ones that don't apply, we will take out of the equation here. So number one, the need for a proposed use in the proposed location. There's no need for it in this specific location. Is there a need for doggy daycare in the town of Newington?
No, at this location.
At this location, right? Not specifically to this location.
I agree there's a need maybe in town, but not at this specific location.
Number B, the existing and probable future characteristics in the neighborhood in which the use is located. I believe, you want to answer that?
It's an entirely residential zone, small lots, and so I think that the character of the neighborhood would be, it could be detrimental to the character in the neighborhood.
I agree with that, based on previous discussion at tonight's meeting about the carve-out and/or spot zoning.
C, the size, type, location of main and accessory buildings in relation to one another and in relation to other structures in the vicinity. I don't believe that is something that would, how do you think that applies?
I don't think that applies. I mean, it could have, but I don't think there's any testimony that speaks to the size of the location of the buildings.
D, traffic circulation, I don't believe that applies either. You're talking about large-scale retail development in excess of 40,000 square feet. Well, I don't believe that applies either. E, availability of public water, sewer. I believe that they meet all the requirements of public water, sewer, and there would be no overload to the water or sanitary systems. F, location and type of display signs. She has no display signs and does not propose any, so that does not apply. Safeguards to protect adjacent property and neighborhood in general from detriment, including but not limited to proper buffering. You want to address that?
I believe that applies. I spoke to that earlier.
Agree.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to possibly add another finding, if put it on the table. Newington Town Planner and the ZEO have reported to us in a staff report dated January 17, 2018, that per section 3.15.1, kennels are only allowed as an accessory to a veterinarian's office.
Okay, motion's made and second. Roll call vote.
Well, okay, so the recap, discussing whether or not you want to add that as a finding or not. I don't know how
Mr. Camillo, can we add that as a finding to your motion? You made the second, so you're adding that as a condition.
I'd like to add that as a condition, or not a condition, but as a finding.
That's part of the motion at this time, then.
Okay, so then if we can go back to number 4. So then the items in section 5.2.6 that the applicants did not satisfy you on were A, E, and G. Right, the others were either okay or not applicable. Right.
Adding H?
Well, no, no.
H just...
A through G are from the regs, yeah.
I got
But then number 5 is, yeah.
Commissioner Payne,
Yes.
Commissioner Fox,
Now, are we voting on this addition, 3.15.1?
Voting on the motion that's on the table, Mr. Fox.
Nay.
Nay.
Commissioner
call you in.
Sobieski,
Nay.
Commissioner Claffey,
Yay.
Commissioner Canillo,
Yay.
I'm sorry,
Yay.
and Commissioner Braverman,
No.
Commissioner Aiello.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask that this commission put it on the agenda at our next meeting to come up with a kennel regulation for the commercial zones, which is relaxed, which will hopefully help either this applicant or other applicants that are trying to put this type of business in.
Mike, can you read petition 0418 under old business?
Clear? Petition 04-18, special permit recreational use at 80 Fen Road, Montana Knights axe throwing applicant. 80 Fen Road LLC, owner Merle McKenzie, 1183 Killingworth Road, Higginham, contact.
Is the applicant here? Come forward, please. Is the representative for the property owner here?
He's not.
Okay, could you, we were hoping that he would be here so that we could find out what he's doing with the existing site plan that's not completed.
I have a revised site plan here, if you'd like to look at that.
The CEO, can I ask you a couple of questions on what you might know about this application and the condition of the site and the condition of what's left there? Has anyone from our office gone out to the site to check and see what has been done under the existing site plan and what has not been done?
We've not been out for, the owner hasn't requested an inspection. I've seen it from the road, but we've not been on the property. I have a fair idea of where it stands today. But we've not been, like I said, invited on the property to do any final, inspections or talk about bonds or anything along those lines.
Okay, can you shed some light on what has been, can you shed some light on, without the property owner being here, and committing to, tell us what you can.
You want me to speak or do you want me to?
No, have the applicant speak. Thanks, Mike.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe per the last discussion with this committee, you were looking for additional parking spaces shown on the map, which I have here. There's an additional 24 or 22 spots
Okay.
on top of what is already existing, and
And that reflects on this site?
it reflects on this page.
Okay.
And if memory serves, I believe the committee was looking for 10 spaces. This shows an additional 22.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Are you submitting that, or is he submitting that site plan adjustment so we can move this forward, or is it stamped by an engineer and
It's stamped by an,
Mr. Planner, can we accept that, or you want the owner to come in with?
Well,
It's a little both.
I know, but I think the answer to your question is no.
Okay. Okay.
By all means, submit it. By all means, let the commission know that there's 20 spaces available. But because of our zoning regulations, the landlord has to come before you as a separate process to get the plans approved by you folks. So it's great that they show us 20. I have no problem with your approving it tonight, with the condition that the landlord come back within some reasonable amount of time and get that plan made official.
That's what I was getting at. I don't want to.
I think what we're gonna want to see happen is we're gonna want to see the staff go out, determine what is not done on the existing site plan, come up with a dollar figure, and get a bond. Because he's occupying the building without the benefit of a certificate of occupancy for the tenant that's there now. Does the commission agree with that assumption, or is that something that we shouldn't be doing? Commissioner Sobieski, you got an opinion on that?
No, I agree with it.
Commissioner Claffey?
Wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
And I state that, and I brought this up at the last meeting, it has nothing to do with the axe throwing, but I don't want you to spend your time and effort, come here, and then just be waiting in the wind for what action your future landlord still has to take with the town of Newington.
if I may, I believe, and you can remind me if I'm incorrect in this, but there was some discussion as to if you were to approve this, it would be subject to him satisfying all of the town regulation. And, you know, I've had this discussion with him and his representative, and at least verbally to me, I mean, I'm not going to pay the guy until I get a CO. I'm not going to get a CO until you allow it, and you're not going to allow it.
But understand that you can't move into the building without a certificate.
No, I completely understand, but I can
And to
do
assure
prep,
that
I can work.
Yeah, but to assure that that this doesn't happen, we want a bond for the work that is not done, because we're not even sure that he put in the drainage right, or put the drainage in at all. We don't know what he's done there, so we need staff to go out with this existing site plan and make a determination what's been done and what's not been done. And what's not been done, we need a dollar figure, and we need a bond posted by the owner. So I'm willing to, I said it from the beginning, that this is a good application. There's nothing on that part of this applicant. It's the problem that we're having with the owner of the property. I'm willing to, allow us to move forward with this application.
I believe we should move forward with it. I think it's a good application, and just put some conditions in there to protect us on the subjects that we had talked about.
And also would protect what we're doing,
Protect
what you're
the
investing,
applicant.
you know, and that's why it was brought up.
I think there's a draft suggested motion in the packet. Maybe down towards the bottom, maybe like 5 or 6 pages up from the bottom.
In
The agenda packet that we got in the mail.
Yeah.
And there will be a condition, the second condition that will be added from what I just heard tonight.
May I ask a question of the applicant? How is your communication with the owner with, it seems he gave you that, so I assume
It's been very good. You know, he's aware that there's work that needs to be finished and to satisfy what you guys need to have in order to approve this, and he put me in touch with the guy who had this prior site plan. That's the guy who drew this up, and he seems to be moving pretty quickly with it.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we probably just have to add the other issues, I think, to make sure it meets. Number one was just mainly about parking, but also the other
Performance bond for any outstanding items.
in the site plan approval, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
So we
Whatever you want
ready
to.
to make a motion? Do you have that in there? Huh?
Yes.
Okay.
You read the motion, and then the town planner will add the
Subsection of that.
correct.
You're reading the motion? Yeah, where is it? Right here.
We want to get you going, but you're going to
Thank
have
you.
to pressure the owner to
I'll be on that.
get the bond.
Got a lot of access.
Yeah, if he can't get the work done, we want the bond up.
All right. Ready?
Go ahead.
Petition 04-18, special permit recreational use at 80 Fen Road. Montana Knights axe throwing applicant, 80 Fen Road LLC owner, Merle McKenzie, 1183 Killingworth Road, Higginham, Connecticut, contact. I move to approve with conditions petition 04-18, special permit recreational use at 80 Fen Road, Montana Knights axe throwing applicant, 80 Fen Road LLC owner, Merle McKenzie, 1183 Killingworth Road, Higginham, Connecticut, contact. Conditions 1. Parking lot shall be revised to show improved parking along the west wall of the building. The property owner shall apply for a site plan modification approval within 60 days of the date of approval of this special permit and shall execute the approved site plan within 60 days of the site plan approval.
And then condition number 2, a performance bond based on the outstanding site plan items shall be posted by the owner.
Second that. Motion made. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you understand that if you decide to have food or some of the stuff that you talked about that you weren't doing, that you have to come back to this commission.
Just so I know exactly what to report back to the landlord tonight, I understand the performance bond. You need him to make application for this site plan? Is that the
Yes.
proper verbiage?
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
so I'll send him a text tonight and we'll go from there.
That includes bringing that document there back. You can't just come with, just fill out an application. That has to be with it. Or
Yes, sir.
the other documents too. Thank you.
Okay, good luck in your venture.
Thank you very much.
We added item D, which was the Willard Avenue petition 1018. Want to make we got a motion for that?
I'm sorry. What?
We added, under new business, we moved to old business 10-18, Willard Avenue. Michael?
Petition 10-18, site plan modification at 475 Willard Avenue. Infinity Group applicant, Shelbourne Newington LLC owner, Brandon Hanfield, P. 191 Norwich Ave, Lebanon, Connecticut, contact. I move to approve with conditions petition 10-18, site plan modification at 475 Willard Avenue. Infinity Group applicant, Shelbourne Newington LLC owner, Brandon Hanfield, P.E., 191 Norwich Avenue, Lebanon, Connecticut, contact. Conditions. 1. The plans shall be revised to address the town engineer's comments dated March 23, 2018.
Second. Second. Motion made and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carries. Next item on the agenda is town planner's report.
No, we have a public, a special permit for public hearing.
That's for the
Yeah,
thing.
right, for the
No pun intended.
for the canine crime stoppers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you skipped past that. Right. They're having another fundraiser. They had one last year.
Sorry, I missed, went right over that. Petition for public scheduling, yes. Go ahead.
This is another event that the Canine Crime Stoppers had last year. It's a wine and beer tasting event at Turnpike Motors, And so I recommend the hearing be scheduled for your next meeting, April 11th.
Any problems? Okay, schedule it. Okay. Now the town planners report.
Okay. Well, my report just deals with the Newington Ridge Preserve item. The first thing is we did send written notification to the owner, to the developer. It was sent by FedEx at the town attorney's recommendation, and it was received and signed for, so they did receive it. A copy was also sent to their agent for service, so they can't deny having received it. And the staff met with the Homeowners Association last week. Obviously, they have a lot of questions. They're lay people. They have lots of questions. And a lot of my answer to them was, these are good questions, and they're going to have to be worked out. We talk about the hold harmless agreement, and we talk about it kind of quickly as if it's going to be a simple document, but it's not. It's going to be a very complicated document with rights and responsibilities on both sides. I discussed this with the town attorney the other day, and he agrees that it's going to be complicated, as it should be, because it's a legal matter. There's a lot of money involved. There are rights involved. The homeowners don't want to feel that they're being abandoned by us, and I think by having a fairly detailed contract with both parties' responsibilities spelled out, everybody knows that we're all in this more or less together, that we're not just abandoning them, and they like that. Unfortunately, they're not meeting with their association until after your April 11 meeting. It just happens that that's when they scheduled their next meeting, and they can't get together before that. So it is what it is, but they won't be able to come back and let you know whether they're in agreement with the idea of them taking responsibility for the project until after your next meeting. But it is what it is.
Commissioner Sobieski.
Yes, Mr. Planner and Commissioner Payne, maybe you can help me out here a little bit. Am I correct in assuming or understanding that the existing contractor does not have a license in the state of Connecticut anymore?
I don't know that for a fact. I know the homeowners have been telling us that. It doesn't matter to me, so I haven't researched it because it doesn't matter to me. Either it does or it doesn't.
Well,
I don't know.
The second part of my question is, and it's like maybe a catch-22, I believe Commissioner Wood said that the contractor should have the ability to finish the job. If he doesn't have a contracting license, how is he going to finish the job?
I think you'll be able to ask him that when he comes in, if he comes in. If he doesn't come in, then...
I'm just wondering, did you hear the same thing I heard or no?
I heard that, but it's possible that it's possible that the company went under business and they started under a new name, and now they have a new license under a new name. So all kinds of things are possible.
Okay.
I don't want to assume anything from the contractor unless we hear from him, and if he doesn't come in after everything that we went through, I guess we're down to one alternative.
Well, even if he didn't have a contractor's license, if he subcontracted to the work with contractors that are licensed, he would be able to get around that regulation.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Am I correct, Mr.?
Well, I don't know.
Except
Well,
for building.
that's not my area, so I don't want to.
Yeah, well, I'm in the construction business, and I believe that is the fact. Commissioner Fox.
Yeah, so you're saying even if these people do not have a contractor's license, they can still sub out the work?
Right, well, it's just like you at your house. You don't have a contractor's license, and you can subcontract for people who do work on your house.
I don't know.
It's the same situation.
I don't know. I shouldn't say, of course I don't know, but I don't know, maybe that's something somebody should look into. If he doesn't have a license, can he actually hire people to do the work for him?
Commissioner Claffey,
Yeah,
you have some expertise in this area.
I would say all it is a legal document that he is giving his right to that gentleman to complete the job under his license.
Out the work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't like it, but under this circumstance, if it gets that point, then it's Attorney Akona's thought process.
Right. Any other questions on the reserve, Newington Reserve? Anything else under report? communications? Any communications?
I don't have any.
No. Public participation? No. Remarks by commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I asked for something to be on the agenda earlier, and I was ignored.
Oh, I'm
So-
sorry. What was
No,
that?
no, not, you didn't ignore me. So I'll ask again. Is it possible, and are the other commissioners willing to, I'd like to put the 3.15.1, special permits allowed in BBT Business Turnpike Zone, the veterinarian, the dog kennel business. I'd like to get it up on and address it in all commercial zones and make it less restrictive so that it's not tied into a big veterinarian hospital. And maybe there's possibility where somebody could go out and rent a small little space and operate that type of business.
I would agree with that. Just looking at the first applicant about the bounce house, those will become popular. And, you know, there's some rules that you could decipher, the arcade versus a certain amount of number of games. You know, none of them have that, but under that, not just for them, but you could get somebody come in with a big arcade that's over the number, and now you're back to, well, your document only states this in zoning law, I want this, and now we're back to another text amendment. Even though it's another thing, it's something that I think if someone wants to hold a business in a business zone, they should have that right if they follow the procedures.
I mean, if the commissioners remember correctly, we had a groomer that came in, and I don't think they came in, but they requested information on operating a kennel in association with their groomers. And we all sat here.
That was a daycare, but she came in under the kennel, which was the right area for her to come in.
Correct. And we determined that it was a kennel, and we said, well, gee, that's a commercial zone, but by our regulation, it had to be tied with a veterinarian hospital. So I think it's pretty restrictive. There's not many veterinarian hospitals. There's only so many of them. And I think that if we loosen it up and we have it in all the commercial zones with some conditions and restrictions that are necessary, then it might give an opportunity for some of these small businesses to pop up in our commercial zones.
Okay, I'll have a draft for you in my next report. Okay, if you like. Yeah.
I would.
Yeah.
I don't know how everybody else feels, but
Yeah. Okay. We don't need a motion, do we?
for that,
No. Okay. I have no closing remarks. Motion to adjourn.